Hello and welcome to episode 223 of my podcast all about knitting and crochet and my yarn shop here in Wiesbaden, Germany. I'm Kiko and today is March 11th, 2024. Today I'm wearing my Stephen West shawl. So I showed the finished object 2 weeks ago in my last podcast episode, and since then I've washed and blocked it. And I did not block it very aggressively. I just basically laid it flat and then just pulled it apart a little bit so everything would be really flat, especially this edge that was rolling quite a bit before I washed it, and it still rolls a little. So the parts that sort of hang freely, I think they hardly roll, and the size is really nice now, just to show. I think it did grow a little bit just by laying it flat, and also the lace bit opened up a bit, so the holes are a bit more visible and the beads are more visible. And with the edge, as I said, if it's hanging free, it seems to be quite straight, but the parts where I have my arms and where I keep moving, it tends to roll back up, but it's not too bad. And I'm really happy that I've did all the colors twice, so even if it rolls up a bit, I still have the pattern showing for at least once per color. And otherwise I'm really happy with the way this sits. It's I think one of the typical things with Stephen West shawls is that the edges, they sort of fall forwards naturally. He usually doesn't design triangles that have a straight upper edge. Don't really know how to explain that, but usually the edge sort of comes up a little bit, so it does tend to fall forward a little, and it just stays on your shoulders really nicely. So this is the whole thing, and you can see the lace bit with the holes. You can sort of look through the holes. The beads are a lot more visible now that things aren't squashed in together that way. I think the beginning part probably changed the least. That was probably the same after it was knit. And also I think this bit hasn't really changed a lot. It did roll, this edge rolled a little bit. That has almost stopped completely rolling in. So yeah, I'm very happy, and the yarn is so soft. It's the alpaca sock yarn mixed with the black is the merino sock yarn by Hansa Farm, and all the yarns are really soft and warm and fairly light. I mean, the whole shawl isn't that light. I used almost 100 grams of each of the colors, so maybe 80 or 90 grams of each color. So it's fairly heavy, but I think that's mainly because of this pattern and the last pattern. They are quite dense, but the middle is fairly soft and a lot lighter. Oh yeah, that's the inside, just in case you're curious. I did cut off all the ends of the ends that I had woven in. So I weave in the ends before I wash it, and then I block it, and after it's blocked and dried, I snip off the ends. That's the way I usually do it. And it does kind of look nice from the inside, so even if you see the inside for a bit, it doesn't matter. Yeah, so that's the Geogradient by Stephen West. It was last year's Mystery Knit Along. I was a bit worried it'd be too small, but I think the size is really nice now. It's been blocked, and I'm really happy with it, and I love wearing it. The pullover I paired it with today is a very old pullover. It's knit from Wollerödel yarn. It's a mix of mohair and either polyester or polyamide, I don't remember. And I knit the pullover with the yarn held double. It was one of the projects that I had to knit for the shop window display. So we used to knit everything that was in the shop windows. And so I had to stick to the color and the pattern in sort of every detail. The only thing that I could decide for myself is which size to knit. And I really liked the color, and I liked the shape of the pullover, so I chose to knit my own size, and I've worn the pullover quite a lot. If it had been up to me, I would have knit long sleeves because it's a fairly warm pullover, but if I wear a long sleeve shirt, I could wear like arm warmers, something like that. So it's okay. And with this shawl, this is, as I said, now it's fairly big and it does cover part of my arms. So that also helps with the short sleeve. And I can, sometimes I even pull this around my arms like this if I get cold, and that also works really nicely, and it helps the shawl to sit where it's supposed to sit. So it's a really nice combination with this pullover and this shawl, and I'm really happy with what I'm wearing today. Okay, then on to finished objects. I have 3 finished objects today, but I also have 5 new cast-ons. So after last time I said I didn't cast on anything new for a week, and I was a bit worried I might sort of escalate with the cast-ons after that, and it's sort of what happened. So what really happened is that I cast on projects and I forgot about them, and then I cast on more projects, and then there's a mystery knit along that I signed up for, and then also there's the sock madness happening. So I had a lot of good reasons to cast on new projects, but I will try and concentrate on finishing more projects this week. But I have 3 finished objects for today. I'll start with the oldest projects, which are my sister's socks. They are knit out of opal yarn from the Showtime series. She chose this color, which is it's not a bright color the way she likes it. I sort of accidentally knit almost identical socks. I wanted a project that was just something I could pull out and knit a few stitches, don't have to think. So I used my mini circular needles and just knit every stitch. I put in a fish lips kiss heel, I think, for a change. And I knit my first anatomical toes. So my sister sent me an Instagram reel that showed how to do that, and she wanted to have them to see how they fit and if she liked to wear them. So what you do is, so these are the fronts of the socks. This is where the heels are, and then for each sock you choose one side where you start decreasing, and then only at the end you decrease on both sides, and then you Kitchener stitch the last few stitches together. And then if you make sure to choose the other side with the second sock, you get a right and a left sock. And now my sister can see how she likes the fit of them and how they wear, and if it's nicer when she puts shoes on. And I'm looking forward to hearing what she says. So these are the heel sides, and you can see how identical the socks are. It's so funny. So they both end in the grey. It's just a little more grey here, a little less grey there. So it's not exactly the same, but they almost look like they were the same. Yeah, so they are finished, and I'll talk about socks in a minute. That was the oldest project that I finished, and the second oldest project is the Sandnes yarn hat that I knit out of leftover yarn from the first hat that I knit out of this yarn. I bought 3 balls of 50 gram. I bought 3 50-gram balls of yarn when I was in Sweden several years ago. This is Norwegian yarn by the company Sandnes, and I knit a hat in these 3 colors, and it turned out a little too small, so I decided to use the leftover yarn to knit another hat. And first I knit the light grey and the middle grey because I had most of those 2 colors, and then I knit the 3 colors until it was almost gone, and then I just improvised some decreases. And before I put the hat on to show how it fits, this is all the yarn that I had left. So with the darkest grey, I was really worried I might run out of yarn, but I managed to finish this second round. And then there was one more round in the middle grey. This is most of the yarn, the most yarn that I have left. And then I had a little bit of the light grey. But I was really happy. I could have knit a few more rounds in the middle grey, but I quite liked the way I did the decreases. I didn't want to change that anymore. And it's a nice fit. It's not quite as big as I would have liked it to be, so I wouldn't have minded if I could have folded up more, so both colors might have shown, and I could have had a bit more over my ears, but it's not too small. It's a lot bigger than the other hat is. Now I can wear them on top of each other if I get really cold in winter. My ears have the double layer, and it's more of a rustic yarn, so it's really warm. It's not the softest, but I don't mind. I can wear it next to skin, and I haven't washed it yet, and I know from the other hat that it does get softer from washing. Yeah, so that's the hat number 2. And I am very happy with the finished object, and it goes quite nicely with the shawl. It's not quite the same greys, but I think with black and grey it doesn't really matter if I have one on my hat and one over my shoulders. So that was finished object number 2. And then finished object number 3 is also one of my new cast-ons. It's not the oldest and not the newest, is it? No, it's somewhere in between. But it's no surprise, it's the Sock Madness socks. So I told you 2 weeks ago that I was going on a very short holiday from Saturday to Wednesday, and I packed all the yarn because before we left, the specs hadn't dropped yet, but they dropped that evening. So Saturday evening when we got to the hotel, the specs had dropped, so I got the bag of yarn from the car. I hadn't brought it in when we first arrived, but I brought it in to choose 2 colors, and then the pattern dropped really quickly, and I started knitting the Saturday evening, and I finished the socks shortly after we got home on Wednesday, and I took the photos and I sent my email, and they were approved, and I'm now on to round 2. So these are the socks. The pattern is called I Walk the Line, and it's by Shui Wu, and it's a very beautiful pattern, and it's not really very difficult. It has this beautiful zigzag pattern where you have increases and decreases. The increases are a bit different from the way you usually do them, but that's something you get used to fairly quickly. But there is a special something in the socks. You can't have a really simple pattern for Sock Madness. So it looks deceptively easily with the zigzags, but if you look closely, you can see some purl stitches here, and you can hardly see the purl stitches here. But the effect that gives is when you look at them like so, you can see there's a light line here and a dark line here and a light line there, and that makes them really special. And so when you wear your socks, you look from up, you look down on your socks, you can see those lines here, but then on your foot you just see the zigzag because you look from the top and not from the edge. But this is what makes the pattern really special, and that's what made it a bit more difficult to concentrate, because you had to concentrate which color you had to knit, which stitches were knit and which were purled. And yeah, but it's not too difficult. It's something you get used to. I picked the opal sock yarn from the, which series was that? Oh, that's also the Showbiz series. So that was my favorite color in that series. It's with a lot of turquoise and a bit of orange, a bit of green, a bit of purple, light purple. And again, I accidentally knit identical socks, which is so funny. I was really trying to knit as quickly as possible. When I finished the first, I just cast on the second. I did not check the colorway, the color sequence at all, and it was only after I had knit quite a bit that I realized that the colorful lines line up, the heels are the same, and the toes are the same, and it's so funny. And I didn't plan that at all. I just knit the way they came. They are really big. They are European size 43 to 44, so they fit my husband, but he doesn't want to have them. So I already have somebody else in mind who might like these socks, and I'm really happy I finished them, and that I got a spot for round 2. Now the round 1 still runs until this Saturday, so there will be no new Sock Madness socks this week, but maybe on the weekend. We'll see. And these are all my finished objects. Now on to works in progress. And I'll start straight away with one of the new cast-ons, because that's the only sock I have on the needles at the moment. And that's another project that I'm knitting out of the Westfalen Wolle, which is a German yarn. It's a company that a young German woman founded because she realized that most of the German wool from German sheep is sent into other countries to be processed and worked into yarn, and then it's reintroduced into Germany and sold here. And she's thought that was very wasteful and not very it doesn't make a lot of sense. So she founded that company, and she started buying German wool from German sheep, and now she produces this yarn. It's undyed yarn, it's not superwash, and there are 4 natural colors: the cream, light gray, dark gray, and a light brown. And I've knit socks out of that yarn before, and because there's no nylon in there, they do walk through quicker than normal sock yarn, but they also are really warm and nice. And it's also more of a rustic yarn, but it does get softer with washing. And I often wear these socks on top of other socks or on top of stockings. And the one pair that I knit, I keep in my shop to put on if I get cold feet. So they do get worn every now and then, and I don't want to show them off to customers. So I decided I need another pair that I can just show to customers, and I won't wear them. And as a pattern, I picked the pattern Acorn by Tin Can Knits. It's in their Lazy Sunday ebook collection, and it's the collection has all cable patterns, and this is what the sock looks like. Can't really speak today, doesn't matter. And yeah, I've always liked the pattern. I've always wanted to knit it, and now I decided to do it with this yarn. A friend of mine wanted socks from the same yarn, and she also wanted to knit this pattern, so we have our own mini little knit along. And yeah, this is what I've done so far. You need a lot of stitches for this sock. So the first pair that I knit, I used 4.5mm needle, and I cast on 40 stitches, but this one calls for 44 stitches, and then you increase to 60 stitches because of the cables. And this seems like a lot. I went down to a 4mm needle because I was a bit worried with that many stitches, but the size is quite good. I can put it on, and it's okay. I will probably knit the socks a bit bigger than I would need them because I've got my own pair and I can give them to somebody else, or I want to have them in the shop to show, as I said. But yeah, anyway, a lot of stitches because the cables pull in. You need more stitches than you would need without the cables. So for the heel and the sole, you decrease stitches again. And so the sole is just stockinette stitch. And yeah, that's what I have so far. My only pair of socks at the moment. Then the next project, small project on with sock yarn, is the baby cardigan that I'm knitting as part of the pattern battle, where we all knit with the same color from the Opal subscription. And this is the baby cardigan showered in rainbows by Tellybean Knits that I've knit several times, and it's knit in a lot of pieces, and most of the time I would finish one part and then show it to you, but this time I decided to stop in the middle of one piece just to show which needles I'm using, just for fun. So last time I showed it to you, I'd finished both the sleeves, and the next things, the next two things I had to knit were the fronts. So I'll pull this needle out. So I'm knitting this on straight needles. I very rarely use straight needles, but these are fairly short and they have the right size for this small project. And so I quite like to knit this cardigan on the straight needles, except for the sleeves, that they are knit on double pointed needles because they're knit in the round. So for the first front, I picked up stitches from this side piece and knit some decreases for the neckline, and then I knit the button, not the button band, but the buttonhole band. Is that what you say? So I've already knit in the buttonholes. Up here there are 3 buttonholes, and I have this one dark grey stripe in here, which is quite funny. And now I've picked up the stitches for the second front, and the interesting thing is because there's always 2 grey stripes close to each other because I had the first grey stripe on this front. I think the second grey stripe started when I cast off the stitches for this front. So I picked up the stitches with the dark grey on this front, and right now everything's curling and you can't really see it, but once it's blocked you'll be able to see the stripe here. But it means that the rest of the front will be in the light colors, in the orange and red and yellow colors, so that should look quite nice. And but then because the buttonholes are in this side, this will be on top of the other side and you will be able to see the grey stripe. I think this will be really funny. And once I finish the second front, all I have to do is pick up stitches for the neckline and pick up stitches for the sort of ribbing. It's not knit in ribbing, I think it's knit in garter stitch. So I think the only ribbing is on the sleeves. All the other edges are in garter stitch. Yeah, so that's that. And I'm really hoping to finish it fairly quickly because the next subscription parcel, the next abo parcel, will arrive not this week, but next week. And then it always takes some time for the color to be picked and the patterns to be announced, so everybody can say which pattern they want to knit. So the start of the next knit along will take a bit, but I would really like to have the cardigan finished before the next parcel arrives. That'd be perfect, and it should be possible. So that's a baby jacket. Then the next baby project is another new cast on, and that's I'm knitting the Beloved bonnet by Tin Can Knits, another Tin Can Knits pattern, and that's a single pattern. It's not part of an ebook, and it's a pattern that I've looked at a lot, and I always thought I'm not going to buy it. I have so many baby patterns already, but I really liked it. It has a different construction, and now because they have the new app and because I sort of paid some money to help them develop the app, I got 3 credits that I could use for patterns. And then I thought, well, now I have the credits, I can get the pattern. And now I'm knitting my first Beloved bonnet, and I'm using the Alpaka silk yarn by Hansa Farm. So it's a very soft and very luxurious yarn. And I've talked to the parents of the baby I'm knitting this for, and she said it'd be fine to wash it by hand because it's not going to fit very long. I'm knitting it in a small size, so it's for the first few weeks of the baby's life. And I had already decided to use this yarn, and then I looked at the pattern and I realized that they say to use DK weight yarn, and this is fingering weight yarn. So I have now cast on, or I'm now knitting a bigger size. I think I'm knitting the second size, hoping it'll be small enough for a newborn. And I hope it won't be too small, but sorry, we'll see about that. So one of the things I love about the Beloved bonnet is that it has these I-cords that you use to close the hat, the bonnet. So you start by knitting one of those I-cords. Excuse me, I think I'll have to sip some tea. Excuse me. Maybe I inhaled a tiny bit of yarn or something. Anyway, so I did the I-cord, and then you start at the side of the hat, and then one of the garter stitch bands will be on the front of the hat and the other one will be at the back. And in between you have some stockinette stitch, and then the hat is formed by knitting short rows, and then when you reach the other side, then you do decreases, and then you finish with the other I-cord, and then you have a finished hat. I really like the construction. It's very well written. I'm knitting it on a fairly loose gauge so that it's a bit closer to the gauge that I'm supposed to have. And I think for baby's first hat, that's quite okay. It doesn't have to be tight. It doesn't have to be sturdy. It's just supposed to be soft and warm, and yeah, I think that's what I'm getting. So that's the Beloved hat by Tin Can Knits. And then the next new cast on is another small project in fingering weight yarn. I'm not using sock yarn, but fingering weight yarn. And that's a mystery knit along that I signed up for, and the pattern is called Line Dance Mystery Knit Along. And I forgot to write down the designer, and I don't think she's a friend of Tellybean Knits, so I tend to mix them up, and I can't think of her name. You can check my Ravelry page there. I have linked the pattern. I think it's Lisa Ross, maybe. I'll write it down next week, and if you can't wait, you can check my Ravelry page. But she announced this mystery knit along a couple of weeks ago, and I was really intrigued, and I bought the pattern, and I talked my sister into joining me, so she's knitting it as well. And then we looked for colors, and she had just that morning said she needed an accessory in that one blue, so we looked for that, and the alpaca lace yarn that I have by Hansa Farm had the perfect color, so she chose some colors from the lace yarn, deciding to hold everything double because then you have the fingering weight yarn. And I decided I wanted an accessory in this color because I'm planning a pullover in this yarn and this color. So I decided if I had a cowl loop in with that color, I can wear it with the pullover once I've knit the pullover. Sometimes that's the way I make plans and my brain works. So this was supposed to be my main color, and then I decided to have Deep Ocean, which is my favorite color, and I've got this little alpaca there in the Deep Ocean color. I decided that's going to be one of the contrast colors, and you need 5 colors for that knit along. And then I decided I'll do the sort of the same colors that my sister chose. So she has light gray, middle gray, and dark gray, and I decided to go for light gray, dark gray, and black. And at first I thought I would only use this as a fingering weight and use the other colors in the lace weight and hold it double. But then I realized that I had the Deep Ocean in fingering weight at home from some old project. I have no idea. It wasn't a full skein either, but I'm pretty sure it'll be enough. And then I remembered that some time ago I had ordered the Royal Alpaca yarn by Hansa Farm in those 2 colors, and I crocheted a neck warmer in the light gray, and they are fingering weight as well. They run 200 meters, so I decided I can use those 2 colors in this yarn. Then the only color I have to hold double is the black. And then I realized that I have the alpaca silk yarn, the same yarn that I'm using for the baby hat, and that also runs 200 meters, so it's sort of fingering weight. And so I don't have to hold anything double. I've managed to get all the colors in fingering weight yarn, and I am using 3 different qualities. So these two colors are baby alpaca. So it's not from babies. It's a certain kind of, it's from certain spots on the alpaca, and it's just called baby alpaca because it's really soft. And those 2 are the royal alpaca. They come from different spots on the alpaca, and they're even softer. And this is a mix of baby alpaca and silk, so that's it's a little bit cooler to the touch. It's a bit more shiny, and it'll just give a different accent in the cowl, I hope. So with this also, the black was the merino and the gray colors were the alpaca yarns. And I don't think it's very obvious that this is a different yarn. But even if you do notice, I think it's just interesting, makes it more interesting to sort of mix the qualities a little bit. So that's the yarn I'm using. And now to my project. In case you're joining the same mystery knit along, you don't want to see what clue 1 looks like, you must look away now. I'm now showing my clue 1. It's not finished yet. This is what it looks like so far. So this is supposed to be the main color in the end. Right now we have this color, most of that color, and then the light gray, and then I will repeat this pattern with the dark gray, and the black is not going to be used in the first clue. So I'm not showing it anymore. So the first clue uses 4 of the 5 colors, and the second clue should come out sometime this week. And I think the clues come out weekly, and I think there are 4 clues. I'm not really well prepared for that today, but that's what I remember off the top of my head. Yeah, so that. Then I did not, even though I had 2 weeks time, there was just so much happening. I didn't bring all my projects on holiday, and then I was only knitting the sock mount, the socks anyway. So I did not knit on the double knitting loop cowl, remember? And I only crocheted very little on the cotton crochet pullover. I did maybe 1.5 rounds, so it's not really worth showing, so I'm not showing those two. But I'm now going straight to the winter crochet pullover. That's the Whispering Pines pattern, and I had worked on that while we drove to our hotel and before the Sock Madness pattern dropped, so that's how I got to do some progress on this pullover. And this is a crochet pullover where I had already finished both sleeves, and all I have to do now is crochet the front and back down. I'm crocheting in the round, but I'm changing direction every round because I did that with all the parts of the pullover, and so the pattern always looks the same. And you can see this is where I started. I think last week I'd already crocheted like 1 or 2 rounds underneath the armhole, and this is sort of the bit that I have added since then. And yeah, now I just need some more time. And I should really speed this up if I want to be able to knit it before the weather gets too warm. Right now it doesn't look like it's getting very warm, but I think I'll need at least 2 or 3 weeks, and then in April you never know what's going to happen with the weather. So that's the crochet pullover. Then I made some progress on the Mamaki dress. That's the knit dress by Nicolor that I'm knitting from one big cone that I had made to order when I was in Hamburg at the yarn factory. And I think last time I showed it to you, I was still knitting on the neckline, and I finished that. I cast off the stitches. I cast them off really loosely, so it does look a bit weird when it's hanging on a hanger, but once I'm wearing it, once I'm inside the dress, it looks nice. And then I finished the yoke. I decided it's big enough now. This is still the needle from trying it on, and I started the first sleeve. So I decided once I finish the yoke, I'll first do the sleeves, and then I can use up the yarn in my front and backs of the dress. And so I just knit those like maybe 1 or 1.5 centimeters off the sleeve. Yeah, but I'm really happy that I finished the yoke. I don't have to try it on all the time now. And I will knit a bit straight, I think, before I start the decreases. Don't quite remember what the pattern says, but with sleeves, I do look at the pattern, but then I do what I like, because that's the way I like to knit sleeves. So that's that. And then there's one more new cast on that I did last week before the Sock Madness pattern dropped, and after I'd sort of forgotten about 2 projects that I started. And because this shawl was finished, I thought, if you finish a Stephen West shawl, you can start a new one. And I bought this book, West Knits Best Knits Part 3, a few weeks ago when it was for sale. I already own Part 2. I don't have Part 1, but that's okay. I have enough Stephen West patterns. And I've wanted to knit this shawl for quite a while now. It's the squiggle and stripe shawl. And this is what the original looks like. And you start by knitting this middle part, and then later you pick up stitches and you do the edges. And the reason I wanted to knit this shawl is because I wanted to use the alpaca, the brushed alpaca again. I used that for the hat that I knit for my sister some time ago, but that was only a little project, and I wanted to do a bigger project. And also I wanted to knit a shawl for a friend of mine who wears completely different colors to the colors that I wear. So thinking of her, I chose these colors, and I really like the way they look together. And for me, they look like a forest. So I see the trees and the different color leaves. They could be red leaves, or they could be apples or berries or something. And then the light brown could be also part of the tree bark, or it could be part of the ground or something. But for me, this sort of looks like a forest, and I really wanted to knit a shawl in these colors. So I decided for the squiggle and stripe, the original has 6 different colors, but I thought 5 different colors is enough. And the way I'm knitting the shawl is I'm doing the stripes in the beige and the 2 green colors, and I'm using the dark red as the contrast stripe in between those stripes. And this is the way you knit it. It's knit sideways, and you have this wavy pattern going on by doing increases and decreases. You do short rows so that this side is smaller than this end. And now I have to repeat the whole thing, I think 5 more times. And then once I finish that, I can add the 2 side pieces. And for the side pieces, I've decided to do the stripes in these 2 colors. So the beige will sort of repeat from the middle to the side. And this is going to be a new color that I introduce for the side edges. But I think that could look really nice. And yeah, so it's very interesting to see how this is started and how the pattern is worked. And now that I know how it works, I just have to keep knitting. The typical thing for Stephen West, you just have to repeat it a million times. Well, not quite as much, because then you get to knit something new and so on and so forth. Anyway, so that was the 5th new cast on from the last 2 weeks. And that takes me to the knit along that we're doing, where we knit reversible hats and Haramaki. And I am still knitting on my 2 color brioche Haramaki. It has grown quite a bit. I sort of keep waiting for the color sequence to repeat, but for some reason it doesn't really want to. So I think the one bit that I really like are these red parts that do pop up every now and then, but sometimes like I get them on top of each other, and then other bits you only have, there's only 2 here, and then here there's only really this one and the one down here. So it doesn't really repeat, but I also enjoy the way the colors change all the time. Yeah, and it's really soft and squishy. This is the other side, that's the grey side, where I'm knitting the merino sock yarn by Hansa Farm again. And yeah, nothing spectacular, but I'm looking forward to, well, not finishing it yet. It'll take several weeks for this to grow, but I just enjoy knitting it every now and then. It's one of those easy projects. I just pull it out, do a few stitches, don't have to think or concentrate a lot. Yeah, so that was everything I knit and crocheted and cast on during the last 2 weeks. I hope you enjoyed the video, and I'll see you in the next one.